forward to this computer. Okay, so I'm gonna record me doing the, let's make sure I'm still sharing my screen. And let me get out of this. Okay, so we're gonna, for this Excel task, we're just doing a t-test. So you're gonna be working with, hello. Oh, whoops, no, I don't want to save as. I want to open the other thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is a t-test of whether private school kids get test higher than public school kids. We're using the same data set that we used for the first two Excel tasks. And let me make sure my screen is still sharing because I really want this to work properly. So let's see. Yeah, good. Okay, so what we want to do is take these difference in means for public and private schools and decide if they're statistically significant. So previously, in a previous episode of this class, you calculated the overall means reading and math scores for all kids, all 200 kids in the sample. Then you did public school means, private school means, the mean difference with the public school kids doing negative 2.4 in reading, like negative 2.4 points worse in reading and negative 2.5 in math. And then a standardized mean difference, which was those mean differences divided by the pooled standard deviation. Yeah, it would be a little faster if you use this one. If you don't, it's almost as fast. The instructions still tell you how to do everything. So what we want to do is basically know whether this negative 2.4 is statistically significant. In other words, is this gap between public and private for these 200 kids generalizable to all high school kids? Because these are a random draw of high school kids from, I think, 1980. So it is a random sample. But it is only 200 kids out of millions of high school kids, even at that time. So we want to test in this sample, is it statistically significant? So the way that we do that, and let me see, I think this is one that I've already done it. So let me delete what I've already done so I can do it from scratch. Okay, so I'm deleting that clear content. Okay, so when I open the Excel task for topic 13, it tells you the first thing to do is to calculate the mean, the public and private school reading scores, just as you did before. So if you haven't done that, like if you need to redo it, this step one takes you through doing the public and private school averages, the conditional means. Okay, but then moving to step two, step two is a little tricky, and there are different ways to do it. So basically, the formula is we want to get the standard deviation, well, we want to get the variance for, we want to get the variance in reading scores for public school kids and the variance in reading scores for private school kids. Because the E columns are 1 if it's public and 2 if it's private. So this formula is telling, so in cells M208 and M209, we're trying to get the variance, which is the standard deviation of the G's, the reading scores, if the E's equal 1, and we want that standard deviation to be squared. So at the end, you have a caret too, and that squares that standard deviation. And then you do the same thing for private schools in cell M209. And the reason that we're doing that is because our denominator over here has difference in means. I mean, so first our numerator is difference in means, which is up there at the top. That's our average scores. Our denominator is group 1 variance and group 2 variance. So we have to calculate the variances right here. Standard deviation squared is a variance, and standard deviation squared for group 2 is its variance. So that's what this this formula does. And I'm going to paste those formulas into M208 and M209, but I'm so sorry to tell you that it might not work because Excel is a little difficult sometimes. Okay, so M208. Okay, I paste in that formula, equals standard deviation, parentheses if, parentheses, and then the E's are equal to 1, comma, the G's, close two sets of parentheses, and square caret 2, which is square. Okay, when I enter that, this is what happened to a student in this class, which she was doing it over the weekend. It says hashtag value. That means it didn't like my formula. That's because I'm using a kind of non-traditional formula for Excel. And it's one that it doesn't always work in all versions of Excel. So what I do is I go to the formula bar up here, and I think I click, let's see, what does it say to click? Control Shift Enter, or if you're on a Mac, try Command Return. So I'm going to try Control Shift Enter while I'm in the formula bar. Control Shift Enter, and it worked. It calculated it. Now, if that, so I had to click up here in the formula bar and then at the same time hit Control Shift Enter. And what it did is it told it to process that equation, to process that formula. Otherwise, it didn't want to process it. It just added squiggly brackets. Yeah, it added squiggly brackets. So then I drag that down. And then, but in the one I drag down, I'm going to change the E values to a 2. Oh, whoops, that did not work. For one thing, I changed the wrong one. Okay, so I'm going to change the E values to a 2 for the next cell because I want this for public schools now. I mean, private schools. And once again, it did that weird value thing. So once again, I have to go to the formula, click the cell, go to the formula bar, Control Shift Enter, and it worked. Okay, so it does tell me, interesting, and I'm going to put public school variance and private school variance in the L's, in the L column. Private school variance, just to label what I have. Okay, so if that didn't work, which again, it might not work for you because depending on your version of Excel, there's another thing you could do, which is sort your data. If you were to sort your data, you would sort it on school type. Right now it's almost sorted, but not all the way sorted. You would select all of your data, but not your calculations underneath. You would go data, sort, and you want to sort on school type, which is public, private. And so, oh, it already knows that because I've done this before. Okay, school type. All right, so I choose sort by school type, smallest to largest, so it's going to be the publics first, then the privates. I click here for my data has headers because that tells it that row 1 is variable names, row 1 is not data. So, and very importantly, I only grade in the cells that have real data. Otherwise, I'm going to be sorting other things that I don't want to sort. So I click OK, and now my data are sorted so that all of the public schools are together. And then starting in row G, starting in row 170, all of the private schools are together. So once that's true, it would be much easier to get the standard deviations the old-fashioned way, which is stdv.s, and it would just be like G2 to G201, and then you would, oh wait, no, G2 to G169, because we sorted it and they changed at 170. So I square that, whoops, standard deviation. Oh, didn't like my formula for some reason. That's weird. Oh, STD EV, thank you. Okay. Dot S. Oh, there we go. Okay. So yeah, it gave me the same thing. I just had a typo. So that would be like the variance using the sort instead of using my fancy formula over here that Excel doesn't like. So once I've done that, I go to, so what I'm trying to do basically is do this t-test formula. I'm just doing the t-test formula in Excel. So I've got the difference in group means, which is the mean scores for the public and private schools. I've now got the variances for the two groups. So I need to do counts, sample sizes for the two groups -1, because the denominators here are group 1 n minus 1 and group 2 n minus 1. So for that, I'm going to do this in cells M214 and M215, and I'm going to label them as counts -1. Okay, 214 and 215. Public count -1 and private count -1. So to do those counts, you would do count IFS. It's not count if, but it's count ifs IFS. So copy that formula, paste it into M214. M214, yes. Okay, and so the formula is that if the e's are equal to 1, then count how many it's true that the e's are equal to 1. Count how many of these are public school, and then you take that count and subtract 1, because that's what the formula says to do. I mean, that's what the t-test tells you to do. So count that and do that -1. So the answer is it's 167 public school students, and then we'll drag that formula down to the next cell and change the criteria from 1 to 2 for private schools. And now it's, oops, what did I do? I did that wrong. Okay, 167 here, and the one I want to change is the private school count. Okay, good. So I have 167 public school kids and 31 private school kids. Well, no, I have 168 public school and 32 private school. Added together, that's 200 kids. So it worked. It's just that I calculated n's -1. Okay, so let's go back to my instructions. So far, so good. Okay, so then what I want to do to calculate t, and we're going to do this in cells M18 or M218 and M219. Oh, that's right, because we haven't, so far I've only done reading. Public school variance reading and private school variance reading. And I would have to do the same thing for math. So copy, and this is going to be math. And instead of the G's, it's going to be the I's. It's going to be Control, Shift, Enter. Okay. And Control, Shift, Enter here. Actually, we change those to I's. Good. Okay. So I just did the variances for math, and the counts I don't have to do differently for math and reading because everybody has the same counts. So like I have full data for math and reading, so the counts are the same. Okay, so now we're going to plug it all into our t-test, and we're just calculating this t-statistic by hand. So it's going to be M218 and M219. Okay, and this is going to be t-test or t-stat for reading and t-stat for math. Oh, I think I put them in the wrong cells. M218, M219. Okay. So t-statistic for reading, I'm going to do equals public school. So you can also paste this straight from the PDF. In the PDF, it is equals G203 minus G204 over the square root of, so basically you're doing the whole T formula. So I can copy and paste that whole formula, and that will look like this. Paste that here. Oops, it did not like whatever I just did. Oh, because I have two equal signs. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then I do the same thing for math, only instead of 203 and G203, G204, I'm going to be using the I's. And so it's going to be I204. Oh, and it's going to be 203 minus I204. 204 divided by the square root of public school is M2, let's see, what is that? M210 divided by the count, which is 213, and M211 divided by the count, which is 214, 15. This should be 214. Okay, no, I'm just checking my work. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's right. So I've got a T statistic for reading is negative 1.3. A T statistic for math is negative 1.4. Now I already told you before that the threshold for a sample of 200 or more, you need to reach 1.96 in absolute value. So as it happens, oh, yeah. So let me just walk. Yeah.
I203, I204.
Right. So let me make sure that's right. So yeah, 203 is here and 204. Yeah. So those are in I piece too.
And then you said M210.
Right, which should be 88.93 right here.
And then M214 still?
Divided by M214, that doesn't change because it's the same for reading and for math. Okay. So that M214 doesn't change.
And then the M215 at the end doesn't change either.
Correct. But the M211 changes. Okay. Because the variances change, the means change, but the sample sizes don't. Sometimes sample sizes do change. Sometimes kids take a reading test and not the math test, or vice versa. But in this case, the sample sizes didn't change. So I've got two T statistics, negative 1.3, negative 1.4. In order to reach, so I'm going to type here critical value of T, which would, for a sample size of 200 people, or degrees of freedom 196, would be like 1.96. Oops. 1.96 or something like that. Let me see. I did look up the critical, 1.972. It's a little bit higher, 1.972. And so that means because my T's are less in absolute value, we're not worried about the plus or minus. We're just saying 1.3 compared to 1.97, it's smaller. 1.4 compared to 1.97, it's smaller. So because my T's are less than the critical value in absolute value, we say the difference in math and reading scores between public and private are not statistically significant because they don't meet our critical value, but they're smaller than the critical value scores. So that's how you do it. So the 1.97 is I go to a critical value table. So I give you a link on the PDF, but you could also Google it and find one. But what we, the degrees of freedom are 2. So we're going to do n minus 2 because we have 2 means that are known, 2 group means. So degrees of freedom are going to be n minus 2, which is 200 minus 2, which is 198 degrees of freedom. So when I click on that critical values table, I go to two-tailed t-test, 5%, and I go down to degrees of freedom, 198. Now, by the way, statistical software does all of this for you. You never have to do this by hand.
Oh, so that's like a chart given.
Yes, so it comes from this chart. And it's based on the distribution of that t, that is based on the t distribution. Is a reference point, exactly. So yeah, so this is how you do it, but truly, oh, so many. Let's just get rid of that guy. Okay, so yeah, this is how you do it. But when we get next semester to doing statistics, like it gives you T and P in one click. So no, you never have to do this again, except for this week. Oh, by the way, you don't have to do it this week because I made it. Oh, let me turn off the recording before I say this because everybody will have different policies. So let me stop